Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunya Vadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vani Pracharine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Gaura Bhakta Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Nanda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Let's all say Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Srila Prabhupada Ki. Okay. Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back. Whoops. I'm about to get mauled. Any first timers? Anybody not here last night? Okay, your name, Prabhu? Radha. Okay, yeah, you emailed me. You got me the ticket, yeah? Yeah, thank you. By His mercy, I'm here. Okay. Well, yesterday was introductory. Okay, since Radha Raman Prabhu wasn't here, who remembers one thing from last night's lesson? Any points you remember? I mean, it's been, wow, it's been 12 hours, huh? Yeah, guru is one, but gurus also differ. How do they differ? You remember the three ways we presented how the different gurus differ by the role they play in our lives? Different gurus have different roles. Siksha, Diksha, Vartma Pradarshika, Founder Acharya. What else? They differ by their qualifications. Some gurus have big capacity, right? And others are pure, but they're tinier in their capacity. And how about the last one? They differ in the commitment they make to us. And Vartma Pradarshika, for example, he's an introducer. Like who was Prabhupada's Vartma Pradarshika, do you remember? Narendranath Mullik, who never joined the Gaudiya mission to the best of my knowledge, but he did introduce Prabhupada to his eternal spiritual master. Good, okay. So is it too dark? It's all right? You can see me okay? Okay. Well, I can read it, but I just feel funny when the sun goes in. I feel like we're in the shadows. Yeah? Is that too bright? Okay. Okay, that's good. Lesson 2, the Founder Acharya principle. In the first lesson, we looked at the Guru principle. What a Guru is, why we need a Guru, how the Guru is one, how Gurus are different, and how all Gurus are different manifestations of Krishna's mercy. In this lesson, we'll look at the, quote, Founder Acharya, the foundational spiritual master of all gurus and disciples in his line. So whenever I have a title slide, there's a reason why a certain slide leads off the lesson. So here we go. On the left we have, in the last lesson we have Srila Vyasadeva playing the part of the disciple, remember? And Narada Muni was the guru. In this slide, Srila Vyasadeva is playing the part of the guru, and another great personality. Raise your hand if you know who's on the right. Madhva. Although Srila Madhvacharya accepted Diksha and Sannyas from one Achyuta Preksha Swami, Madhvacharya's initiating spiritual master and Sannyas guru was someone named Achyuta Preksha Swami. Since Madhva received the most shiksha from Srila Vyasadeva, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur listed Madhva as Vyasa's disciple in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta called his list the Bhagavat Parampara, a line of Bhagavat instructors. So the disciplic succession list we have in our books, that was made by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And of course, then Prabhupada came and he became the next person in that list. It's a list of prominent Shiksha Gurus. Jai Maharaj. So that list started appearing in ISKCON books in 1968 because the first two books published in ISKCON were, did anybody know? Raise your hand. What were the first two books? Well, that's a magazine. Yeah, that was, of course, predated the books. But no, don't guess. Well, Srila Prabhupada brought his Indian Bhagavatams over, but that wasn't the first books. TLC, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, published by Dinapan Printers, and a heavily abridged version of Bhagavad Gita. Macmillan was so afraid it wouldn't sell that they insisted Swamiji cut it down to 1/3 of the size of the manuscript he submitted. Imagine how painful that must have been. But at least Prabhupada was happy that something was being published. So in the Gita, in page 29, you know, you hear at the end of the introduction, that extensive introduction, then there's this list. So the devotees didn't know what it was. So they were writing letters to Prabhupada. And what's this? What's this list? And if this is disciplic succession, then why is Arjuna not on the list? Arjuna is our hero. He's the hero of the Bhagavad Gita. He got it. Parang Brahma, Parang Dhamma, and he agreed to fight and surrender at the end. So Prabhupada wrote back. Here's a couple of letter excerpts from January and October 1969. Quote, disciplic succession does not mean one has to be directly a disciple of a particular person. Interesting, huh? And then an excerpt from the next letter. Disciplic succession means to accept the disciplic conclusion. And Prabhupada gave an example in the letter. If you have a big tree, like here in Chicago around down the park and the temple, you have some nice big trees, old big trees. And so Prabhupada said, if you go to one part of a tree and you pluck a leaf, and you go way over in the other part of the tree and you pluck a leaf, and you test the leaves, Prabhupada says, you'll see they'll have the same taste. He meant the same characteristics. Because they're coming from the same tree, but they're from different branches. So you can't list all the branches that have ever come from Krishna. It's just too voluminous. So in our Gaudiya line, we're coming from Brahma through Madhva. We trace our line because Lord Chaitanya took initiation in the Madhva line from Ishwara Puri. So Prabhupada said, yes, Arjuna accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So things equal to the same thing, Prabhupada said, are equal to each other. He was quoting an axiom from math, a mathematical axiom. So isn't that interesting? Disciplic succession means to accept the disciplic conclusion. So even though Arjuna is not on the list, we are in the same line because we accept the same siddhanta, the same conclusion. So Bhaktisiddhanta called his list the Bhagavat Parampara, or you could say Shiksha Parampara, people who are preceptors. The Bhagavat Parampara includes both the book Bhagavat and the devotee Bhagavat, an acharya who teaches the book by his personal example. Quote, the acharya sampradaya is strictly bona fide. Therefore, one must accept the acharya sampradaya. Otherwise, one's endeavor will be futile. So we have to select as our spiritual masters, both Shiksha and Diksha, people who are coming in a disciplic line who, as I said, walk the talk, practice what they preach, live the teachings. And then you're connected with some really live wire. You know, it's like an electric wire. It's coming right down from Krishna, and the current's coming through. Otherwise, it's blocked by not following or not teaching it properly. Now, as we'll see in this lesson, it's from the Acharya Sampradaya culture, a culture of exemplars, people who are great examples of the teachings, that the founder Acharya principle emerges in our Gaudiya Vaishnava line. So let's explore the origin and evolution of the phrase founder Acharya. Interesting phrase. It's an English Sanskrit compound. And founder is kind of an organizational word, and Acharya is a spiritual word. So you've got a fusion here of two things, different languages and different concepts. So this is a history lesson of how the founder Acharya principle or concept emerged in our Gaudiya Vaishnava culture. Oops, that's kind of faded, huh? I wonder what happened. Can you see it all right? Okay. So, who's that? Yeah, we can do that. We've been turning them on and off, so let's go to off again. Yeah, it's a little better. Okay. Who is on the screen? 6 Goswamis, Shad Goswami. Within a dozen years after the disappearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in 1534 CE, as they say nowadays, Common Era, Lord Chaitanya's chief disciples, the 6 Goswamis, founded and organized Sangha, an association, in his name. So this is the original Hare Krishna movement's name, or the Hare Krishna movement's original name from Lord Chaitanya. Kevin.
Vishva Vaishnava Raja Sabha.
Right, and we'll find out what that means now in plain English.
The Vishva Vaishnava Raja Sabha is the gathering of devotees who worship the king of all Vaishnavas in the world, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in Sajjana Toshani.
Right, in his father, in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's journal, Sajjana Toshani, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, who eventually transformed that journal into the Harmonist, he identified the Vishva Vaishnav Raj as Lord Chaitanya, the king of the world's devotees, and the Sabha as the gathering or assembly of those who worship him. The Sabha thus planted the organizational seed for, quote, the founder Acharya. That's the first seed. Next, we will examine a philosophical seed. That's a depiction of Srila Rupa Goswami writing and weeping. In 1552, Srila Rupa Goswami finished writing his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, wherein he distinguished regular gurus from great acharyas, a distinction made clearer by Srila Prabhupada in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu summary study, The Nectar of Devotion. Okay, so Subal Prabhu, can you read that?
In his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Rupa Goswami identified the 4 principles of devotional service as Sadhu, Bharmanu, Bharmanam, which Srila Prabhupada later translated in the Nectar of Devotion as, quote, following in the footsteps of the great acharyas, teachers, under the direction of the spiritual master, end of quote.
Yeah. So, following in the footsteps of great acharyas, teachers, under the direction of the spiritual master. Remember, one of the ways gurus differ is by qualification. There are gurus and there are gurus. And here's a corroborating reference from the introduction. Prabhupada saying the same thing. Quote, "In our mental activities, we should always try to think of Krishna and try to plan how to please him, following in the footsteps of the great acharyas and the personal spiritual master." The way we follow in the footsteps of great acharyas is to follow our immediate gurus, Shiksha and Diksha gurus. Now I make an observation. As a child may see his parents as everything at first, then matures to see them in perspective, so a disciple may see his spiritual parents and relatives, that is, his Diksha and Shiksha gurus, as everything at first, then matures under their guidance to appreciate them in relation to, quote, the great acharyas. So now let's look at how one famous disciple saw his great initiating guru in relation to an even greater acharya. So far we have two seeds of founder acharya principle: organizational seed with the Sabha, the Vishwa Vaishnava Raj Sabha. By the way, Jiva Goswami was the big organizer of that. Amazing, huh? He was so prolific. He wrote over 4 lakhs of verses, and it said that he never changed a word. He just wrote like the wind on palm leaves, right? He didn't have Dragon Dictate, or he didn't have a, spell check, or he just. Now, anybody who writes know that writing means rewriting. They once asked Ernest Hemingway why he rewrote the ending of The Sun Also Rises. I think it was 44 times or something. So Hemingway shot back, "To get the words right." So you got to be a liberated soul to. So he was, along with writing over 4 lakhs of verses, including the Sandarbhas, which is still untouchable by anybody as far as trying to refute them for Gaudiya Siddhanta. He was a big organizer. He organized the first book distribution party. He organized the library of all the Goswami's works at Radha Damodar Temple. And he organized this Sangha. Now we have so many Sanghas, right? Bhakti Vriksha and Namahata, and this is a kind of Sangha. So Jiva was just amazing. Okay, so we're going to move from the organizational seed, which is the Sangha, and now we have the philosophical seed, that crucial distinction between a regular spiritual master and a great acharya. Now let's look at the third seed. There's a depiction of Srila Narottam Das Thakur. In the 17th song of his Prarthana collection, a song to Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Narottam Das Thakur feelingly expressed the Guru Great Acharya distinction. So every day we sing songs by Narottam Das Thakur. At the very least we sing Sri Guru Vandana, Sri Guru Charana Padma. In Mayapur every morning after greeting the deities, then they sing a song by Narottam. Does anybody know? Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu, right? And then when someone disappears, Yaya Nilo Prema Dhanna, that's all from Prarthana, Narottam Das Thakur. So despite being the only Diksha disciple of Sri Lokanath Goswami, Narottam prayed to his master, his spiritual master Lokanath, his Diksha Guru, in the 4th verse, to please bring him, Narottam is praying to Lokanath, bring me to the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, who was the Rasacharya of their Sangha, the Vishwa Vaishnav Raj Sabha. Okay, so who would like to read? Himangi Manaji, can you see?
In his Prarthana collection, Srila Narottam Das Thakur wrote in the 4th verse of Song 17, a song to Srila Rupa Goswami. Prabhu Lokanatha Kave Sange Lainak Jabe Shri Rupera Pada Padme More Sampar Pide.
Which means,
when will my Lord and Master Loknath Goswami take me with him and place me at the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami?
Now, Narottam is the only spiritual child of Lokanath. If you know the history, it was very, just to get initiated by Lokanath was a big endeavor. So, is anybody here a parent of an only child? Me too. Yeah. So you know that attachment is very strong because it's the only one, right? So you can imagine how close they were, Lokanath and Narottam Das Thakur. But still, Lokanath, or Narottam is saying, when will my Lord and Master, when will my Prabhu Lokanath, take me with him and place me at the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami? Now, who was Srila Rupa Goswami in relation to those two? Well, we just sort of said it. He was the Rasacharya. He was the chief of the 6 Goswamis. Not because he was the elder Goswami. Who was the elder Goswami? Sanatan. Not because he was famous as being the most renounced, who was Raghunath Das, right? Or not because he was the most prolific writer, who was that? Jiva. But because when he published that Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in 1552, and everybody read that book, wow, this person is the most expert in relishing the mellows, the rasas of devotional service. So in his purport to CC Adi 5.203, Prabhupada writes, Srila Rupa Goswami is described as the Bhakti Rasacharya, or one who knows the essence of devotional service. His famous book, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, is the science of devotional service. And by reading this book, one can understand the meaning of devotional service. So the word founder Acharya wasn't in India then because the British hadn't come, but he was the Bhakti Rasacharya. So as Srila Narottam Das Thakur's Diksha Guru, Lokanath Goswami knew he had the honor of bringing his great and only disciple closer to their Rasacharya, Srila Rupa Goswami. Remember last night we were talking about that's the duty, that's the role of Shiksha and Diksha Gurus, is to bring your disciple, is to enrich, enhance, and deepen your disciple's relationship with the founder Acharya. Well, Lokanath knew that. That's the business. That's the business of gurus, is to deepen their relation with the leader of the line, in this case, Srila Rupa Goswami. So this song by Narottam thus planted a cultural seed, I call it, of founder Acharya. That's the culture. That's what you do. You bring your disciples closer to the leader of the line. Okay, so that's 3 seeds in the course of only 15 years, say from the mid-1540s to 1560, circa roughly. You got 3 powerful seeds of the founder Acharya principle: organizational, philosophical, cultural. We have to fast forward now and go 3 centuries into the future to get to the next seeds, but because by the inscrutable will of Lord Chaitanya, who started the Bhakti Renaissance in Bharatvarsh, that very movement, that Renaissance that he started, he allowed to be eclipsed, overshadowed, driven underground, even disgraced by what? So many devious imitation bhakti groups. Owls, Bowls, Saki Bekis, Gauranga Nagaris, Siddha Pranay. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, 300 years later, categorized them and exposed them, and then brought the real bhakti back to the fore. So let's go 300 years later. We'll look at the literary seeds of founder Acharya. More than 300 years after the planting of the organizational, philosophical, and cultural seeds of founder Acharya, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur planted the phrases literary seeds in his famous book, Harinama Chintamani, in Bengali. He wrote the book in Bengali. Maharaj, you got the mic?
In his Bengali work, Harinam Chintamani, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur sowed the literary seeds of the future English Sanskrit phrase Founderacharya in chapter 6, entitled Disregarding the Guru.
And now we're going to show you the seeds, and then later on in the lesson we'll show you how those seeds bloomed as 2 verses in Harinama Chintamani in this chapter 6. Here's the seeds.
Sampradaye Adi Guru, the original guru of the Sampradaya.
Okay.
Shiksha Guru Pratishtita, a Sampradaya's instructing gurus. Adyacharya Vini, one who is the original acharya of a Sampradaya branch. Guru Siromani, the crest jewel of all the gurus. That's from Harinam Chintamani.
Right, but it was locked in the Bengali language. Only the Bengali Vaishnavas could understand that book at the time. Now, while planting those seeds, Srila Bhaktivinoda made an implicit connection between the prehistorical originators of the 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas. Who were the prehistorical originator? Who's the prehistorical originator of our Sampradaya? Brahma, before recorded history, at the dawn of time, right? And then you have Rudra, or Lord Shiva, another one, and then you have Chatusana, the 4 Kumaras, they started another one. And then you have Shri, Lakshmi, goddess of fortune. Those are the prehistorical originators. So Bhaktivinoda implied there was a connection between those Adi Gurus and the historical acharyas uniquely empowered to represent them in our Kali age. So in the Kali Yuga, those 4 were powerfully represented by Vishnu Swami, Nimbarka, Ramanuja, and Madhva. Okay, so let's go. Yes. Now, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he single-handedly, this is like superhuman, he single-handedly revived the Gaudiya line, you know, the Sri Vishva, what is it? Vishva Vaishnav Raj Sabha. And then he conceived of the whole Hare Krishna movement because he was thinking, Mahaprabhu, he predicted that his name would be sung in every town and village, that Krishna's name would be sung. He's a hidden Krishna. And he conceived of the whole global movement because Mahaprabhu predicted that this would go all over the world, but it wasn't happening for hundreds of years because of all the Upper Sampradayas disgracing and spoiling everything. So he envisioned what it would take to start fulfilling this prediction, and then he prayed for someone to come in his family to actually start manifesting it. And of course we know that Raya Vishnu as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, his 4th son, Bimal Prasad Dutt. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta did actually found an organization, as we know as the Gaudiya Mission. And he took his father's old Bengali journal, which was going from 1879 to like 1904, and he revived it in an English version in the 1920s as the Harmonist. You can see it's like an annual in the first issue. It's listed as an annual, June 27, May 28. So it wasn't in that issue, but it was in the October 1930 issue that we finally see the phrase founder Acharya with 2 Y's, Acharya. And the English you're going to see now, the English Sanskrit phrase founder Acharya first appeared in the Harmonist, the English journal of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's Gaudiya Math. Now, you see, October 1930 issue, and I'm tempted just to read it because it's pretty. You see, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he wrote in very complicated English. Why did he do that? Anybody know? Was he trying to be difficult? What was he up to?
He was trying to speak to scholars.
He had a mission. His mission was to take Lord Chaitanya's movement out of India and to try to impress the modern, basically Western scholars. So he was speaking in fancier English even than them. He used to make up words. He referred to Srimati Radharani in the Brahma Samhita as the supreme regulatrix. So, now, well, Maharaj, you have the mic. Why don't you just, now don't get discouraged if you can't follow the syntax of the sentences, but we'll make it very easy afterwards. Maharaj, why don't you read from here down to limbs? Can you do that?
Okay, the Gaudiya Math is also identical with its founder Acharya. The associates, followers, and abode of his divine grace are limbs of himself. None of them claim to be anything but a fully subordinate limb of this single individual. This unconditional, causeless, spontaneous submission to the head is found to be not only compatible with, but absolutely necessary for the fullest freedom of the initiate of the subordinate limbs.
Got that? In other words, the founder Acharya is the life and soul of his mission, just like Prabhupada would say, he is reported to have said, and he probably did, ISKCON is my body, the BBT is my heart. He's the life and soul of the mission. Okay, so there it is, you see? Finally, after, 450 years, there's the phrase, founder Acharya. Now, the editor of the Harmonist was his scholarly disciple, Professor Nishikant Sanyal, who was like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's right-hand man in the literary department. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta allowed himself to be called the founder Acharya of the Gaudiya mission. Interestingly enough, he never personally introduced himself that way. And we're going to take a look at that later, either today or tomorrow. Or no, later this afternoon. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, in the mood of his father, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he really wanted to take the whole mission out of India. So he knew that to do that, they need to have a book. They need to have something substantial. So in the early 1930s, before Srila Bhaktisiddhanta sent some of his learned sannyasis to preach abroad, he commissioned his scholarly disciple, Professor Nishikant Sanyal, who became initiated as Narayan Das, to compile a book about the life and teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, the book was written with the gravity and sophistication required to impress the intelligentsia of the West. And after Sanyal finished the manuscript in 1933, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta sat down at one of these British hill stations for 2 months and scrupulously edited the manuscript, so it was definitely a corroboration. In the book, which is called Sri Krishna Chaitanya, and you see volume 1, he was commissioned actually to write a trilogy. The first volume was published in Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's time, and mysteriously to me, I don't know all the details, but the second volume was published posthumously after Sanyal and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's time, just in 2004. I have to find out more about that. But a third volume was never written. So in Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Sanyal made very clear, very explicit, what Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur only had hinted at in Harinama Chintamani, namely that there's a very solid, concrete, direct connection between those prehistoric Adi Gurus and the founder acharyas of the 4 Vaishnava lines in the Kali Yuga. Okay, so let's look at what Sanyal said in Harinama Chintamani about the founder acharyas and those Adi Gurus. So how about, everybody can pass maybe Mataji right here.
The systems of Sri Vishnu Goswami, Sri Nimbarka, Sri Ramanuja and Sri Madhva are connected with the ancient times by the recognition of the remote authority of the eternal ancient teachers, namely Lakshmi, Brahma, Rudra and the 4 Kumaras, respectively.
And
the 4 founder acharyas of the Iron Age professed to preach the views of those original teachers of the religion.
yeah, they were so empowered by the leaders of the original gurus of the line and their Shiksha gurus and their Purva acharyas that they had reinvigorated those sampradayas and took them in dynamic new directions. Let's see how that looks visually. Sometimes we learn better by seeing it. So there's Lord Shiva, the Rudra Sampradaya, Sri Vishnu Swami, the founder acharya of the line in the Kali Yuga. 4 Kumaras, Chatusana, Sri Nimbarka reinvigorated that line in our Kali Yuga. There's Sri or Goddess Lakshmi. Ramanuja is the most prominent acharya in the Kali Yuga for the Sri line. And there is our Lord Brahma. And there's Madhvacharya. What's Madhva doing there? What's this all about? Raise your hand. Anybody know? Is he flashing the victory sign or? Dvaita. Well, Dvaita.
Dual.
Yes, it's not all one. Madhva's on a heavy crusade against Mayavad. Anybody been to Udupi? Yeah, so you go outside the temple and you see the same thing. You see Madhva's form in stark relief, powerful physique connected to the wind god. And there's Ishwara and there's Jiva. There's 2, it's not all one. And so they like us in Udupi because they know that our founder Acharya's pranam mantra is Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarne. They like our campaign against Mayavad too. Okay, so there's the 4 founder acharyas. Now, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote that Harinama Chintamani in 1900 in Bengali. 10 years earlier, he had written another famous book in Bengali called Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. You've probably heard of that. Yeah? In that book, because the TOV people are always quoting it, because there's a famous line in there where Lord Nityananda says to Sri Jiva Goswami, once this Adbhuta Mandir rises, the preaching will expand all over the world unlimitedly. Yeah. But in Navadvip Dham Mahatmya by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Bengali, it's such a visionary book. You know, the Thakur is doing, he's taking the reader with him to listen to a guided tour that Lord Nityananda is giving Sri Jiva Goswami of Navadvip. And then in the book, it talks about how before any of these founder acharyas appeared, Mahaprabhu appeared to each one of them. Actually, as they appeared, Mahaprabhu appeared. He actually gave them his darshan. And he announced to each one that he was going to come, after they had all come, and perfect their presentations. Here's how it reads in the Navadvip Dham Mahatmya in English. Quote, from Madhva, the Lord said, he would accept the complete defeat of the Mayavad philosophy and Madhva's service to the deity of Krishna. If you go to Udupi, you see Udupi Krishna. It's very wonderful worship, and every 2 years they have Paryaya, where they have the changing of the seva for the deities. I lived not far from Udupi for off and on for a couple of years on a mountain ashram, and sometimes I go into Udupi just to get inspired by Udupi Krishna and the Mudvites, and I would chant japa in the temple in the morning. And so it was because it was so potent place. I mean, the seat that Madhva sat on giving Bhagavatam class is still there, and they worship that seat. So one morning I was chanting japa, and the darshan is a little difficult to see. It's not like in our temples. We have this big, open, colorful, beautiful darshan of the deities. There in Udupi, if you've been there, you know that you have to get close and you have to peer into this kind of barred space, the altar, and then you can see Udupi Krishna. So one morning I was chanting japa, and all of a sudden I noticed there's a cat standing right by Udupi Krishna, just like a sentry, like a guard. You're just sitting there. Usually we don't think of cats as being that controlled. Usually we have this phrase in English, oh yeah, it's like herding cats, trying to get cats together. It's like herding cats, trying to have a meeting with certain people. Right? It's like her. So I was sitting and I saw the cat, just standing there by the deity. And so I found a pujari who spoke English. I said, Prabhu, there's a cat on the altar. Yes, Prabhu. Oh, why? What's it going on? Cat is for rat. He's there to make sure there's no rats come to the deities. Okay. And then in the course of the morning program that they have there, the morning sadhana, everybody in the town comes to the temple. I mean, from the mayor, if there is, I don't know what they have there. They have a mayor. From the most highly placed people to the most humble people, they come through for darshan of Udupi Krishna. Come through a line and they go out. Even they bring cows in there, and they bring elephants. And when they bring the elephant in, it's just a baby elephant, And they bring the elephant in, and then the trainer does a move, and then the elephant peers into the deity room on one knee and looks in for darshan. And it's such a stark thing. You get a real sense of a spirit soul inside that big, massive elephant body, who's not an ordinary elephant, right? Because he's taking darshan of the deity. Anyway, I used to go there for inspiration. So Mahaprabhu said to Madhva that he would accept Madhva's complete defeat of the Mayavadis and also the service that he had established for the deity. From Ramanuja, the Lord would accept the concept of bhakti unpolluted by karma and gyan, as well as service to the devotees. From Vishnu Swami's teachings, the Lord said he would accept the sentiment of exclusive dependence on Krishna, plus the path of raga bhakti, spontaneous devotion. And from Nimbarka, the Lord would embrace the necessity of taking shelter of Radha and the high esteem for the gopis' love of Krishna. Now then, see, Professor Sanyal, he had access to Navadvip Dham Mahatmya because he was a Bengali Vaishnav, so he could read Bengali. So he had read Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, he had read Harinama Chintamani. So in his book, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, on page 164, Sanyal wrote that each philosophy of the four Vaishnava founder acharyas, you see these technical Sanskrit terms, each of those philosophies, while sound, while correct, they're actually incomplete. They're only giving an aspect of the absolute truth. The philosophy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, however, Sanyal writes, quote, reconciles, harmonizes, and perfects the four founder acharya philosophies by presenting, what's the technical term for Mahaprabhu's presentation? Achintya Beda Beda Tattva. Right. The inconceivable simultaneous oneness and difference of the Lord and his energies. Now the next slide identifies the foundational role that founder acharyas play in their disciplic successions. So there's powerful Ramanuja, powerful Madhva we mentioned last night a little bit when I did that phrase, Adiyan Ramanuja Dasan. So Ramanuja appeared in 1017, so last year was 2017, so it was the millennial of Ramanuja. I mean, that's quite an accomplishment to keep a line together for 1,000 years. And ISKCON was invited. We get along with the Ramanujis and we get along with the Madhvas. So how do they do that? How do the Ramanujas keep it together? Well, they have a term, they have a scripture actually. It's called Sri Prapanamrita Tapana. And in that book, it's like Smriti, Ramanuja Smriti. They refer to Ramanuja as the Udharak, the great, powerful Acharya who is really capable of delivering everybody. He's like a Jagad Guru, but he doesn't stay on earth forever. But he does leave his Mahagranthas, his powerful books. He does leave a form to worship. He does leave their Vishishta Dvaita mission to preach. So all the gurus who come after him, they're called the Upakarak. The Udharak is the Jagat Guru of the line, and the Upakarak Gurus are the people who keep initiating after Ramanuja. And what's their job? Well, they teach their disciples how to understand and read and preach Ramanuja's books, the Mahagranthas, and they teach them how to worship the Murti, and they teach him how to preach the mission. Does that sound familiar? I mean, every morning we're studying Prabhupada's Bhagavatam, we're worshiping him at Guru Puja, and we have a mission that he gave us. So they keep it together by understanding that Ramanuja is their foundational spiritual master and their core identity. And that's why I said, when you ask them who they are, Adiyan, Ramanuja Dasan, I am your servant, a servant of Ramanuja. But they have their gurus, and the line goes on, because everything is intact and unified. Similarly with Madhva, when I was living in and around Udupi, I never actually been to Sri Rangam, the capital of the Ramanujis. But in Udupi, they're so Madhva focused. So Madhva, he's like 11 something to 12 something, 900 years ago. And so they're Madhvites. That's how they identify themselves. And my beloved Diksha Guru is, and my beloved Shiksha Gurus are, and Prabhuji, why don't you come to Paryaya next time and come and help us change the seva. They invite ISKCON devotees to come for their most sacred ceremony. Now, for ISKCON, we may note with profit how the Ramanujis and Madhvas have survived and thrived over the centuries by honoring their founder Acharya as their foundational relationship and core identity. In our Gaudiya Sampradaya, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Harinama Chintamani offers conclusive statements about the unique position of the founder Acharya. Those seeds that Maharaj read in Bengali. Sampradayer Adigurur Shikshaguru Prasistitaha Adyacharya Yanihi Guru Shiromanihi. Now we're going to see how they bloomed as those two verses in full translation. So Maharaj has got to get the mic back for this. We can't deny him the opportunity to read the full bloom. Okay.
Srila Bhaktivinoda's founder Acharya's seeds in bloom. One should first of all accept the instructions of the Sampradaya Adi Guru, the original Guru of the Sampradaya, and behave accordingly. In the disciplic succession of Vaishnavas, the previous Acharyas are established respectively as Shiksha Guru Pratishta, instructing Gurus for the Sampradaya. However, the Adyacharya, the founder Acharya, the original guru of a disciplic line, is appropriately worshipped and respected as the Guru Siromani, the topmost crown jewel of the spiritual masters. His perfect philosophical conclusions are to be followed by all in his succession. Any contrary instructions will not be accepted.
So there it is in Bengali. The Adi Acharya, the Adyacharya. That's Bengali for founder Acharya. And who is he? He's the Guru Shiromani. He's the topmost crown jewel of the spiritual masters. So Prabhupada would always refer to the previous Acharyas, and even in the very first purport of his Srimad Bhagavatam, the multi-page purport, he invites the reader to seriously study the works of the six Goswamis. But you don't do that unless and until you've thoroughly studied the works of your own founder Acharya. It's premature to do otherwise. So we see all teachers and teachings through the lens of our founder Acharya. And then we can know what's authentic, what's appropriate for us. Okay, so to end the slides before the Q&A, I owe a debt to His Holiness Shivaram Swami, who wrote a nice book in 1999, almost 20 years ago now. I mentioned it last night, called The Shiksha Guru. Maharaj was really trying to help ISKCON develop its Shiksha culture because we were still in recovery, and we're still in recovery, from the Zonal Acharya era when there was a lopsided focus only on the Diksha Guru. And Shiksha Gurus were neglected. So he wrote this book called The Shiksha Guru. And a special kind of Shiksha Guru he was focusing on also in part of the book was founder Acharya. And he took it all from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's books. He took it from Harinama Chintamani, actually. So we're going to look at some symptoms or signs of an authentic founder Acharya based on Maharaj's research into Harinama Chintamani. And because we're getting really close now to the next lesson, I think we'll give examples of these symptoms from Prabhupada's own life, because the next lesson we'll finally get to specifically talk about our Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya. Okay, so why don't we pass the mic? How about, did you read yet, Priti Mataji? Want to read?
Summary symptoms of our Acharya in Harinama Chintamani. Possesses great spiritual strength.
Great spiritual strength. Even in the material world, they say love can move mountains, right? What to speak of the highest levels of Krishna praying. Our founder Acharya, as we know, he changed the course of spiritual history. Talk about reinvigorating a sampradaya. What Prabhupada did was unprecedented. Okay, great spiritual strength. So he got that strength from Krishna. An ordinary person, you know, coming over on a boat and having 2 heart attacks, I mean, an ordinary person would have gotten on the next boat and gone back to India. So, but Prabhupada, he was so determined because he had a mission, and that mission was unbreakable for him. Okay, great spiritual strength.
His teachings take precedence over all others and are compulsory for his followers.
Now, precedence is a tricky word, because it doesn't mean that the founder Acharya thinks he surpassed the previous Acharyas. He knows very deeply that he's been empowered by the previous Acharyas to do what he's doing. He's in the right place at the right time, with the right surrender and the right qualifications to take that sampradaya in a dynamic new direction. So he never, and like our Prabhupada was always giving credit to the previous Acharyas, and especially his own Guru Maharaj. There's a pastime in CC where Vallabhacharya, who has his own line, the Vallabhites, Sumati Murarji is a Vallabhacharya follower. But Vallabhacharya, he considered himself, he recognized Mahaprabhu. He knew Mahaprabhu's identity. And so, but one day, Vallabhacharya approached Mahaprabhu and he said, "My dear Lord, I have written a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam that surpasses the commentary of Sridhar Swami." Whoa. So how do you think Mahaprabhu responded to that? Mahaprabhu got very heavy with him. He said, "Oh, you've surpassed the Swami," because Swami can mean many things. Master, controller of the senses. It can also mean husband. "You've surpassed your Swami? Well then, I think you become like a prostitute. If you think you're now independent or beyond or have surpassed the Swami." So Vallabha took it to heart. Yeah, that, oh, this is not good that I think that, because pride spoils everything. You want to, you just explain? Yeah, you can, Swami is, we should go right to CC, but I don't have it at handy. If we think, see, we're being empowered, right, by Srila Prabhupada and our gurus to do what we do. It's not that it's because of us, that's false ego. So if whatever we write, or whatever, like in Back to Godhead, Prabhupada once said that about the articles in Back to Godhead, actually he's writing all the articles, they're all by him, but under different names. Because anything we know about Krishna consciousness comes from Srila Prabhupada. So if any service we do, anything we write or speak, we're getting mercy, that's all. And that's how a real Vaishnava takes a compliment, right? Whereas a writer like Mark Twain, have you read Mark Twain? He once said, "I could live for a month on a good compliment." So that, in other words, he's basking in the glow of the compliment. A Vaishnava's not like that. What do we say when someone, "Oh, very nice class, Prabhu"? So what is the natural response of a true Vaishnava? It's Prabhupada's mercy that someone like me, who grew up, basically I was being, Jai, Shri Kishore Kishori, Shri Shri Gonitai, Shri Jagad Baladev Subhadra Maharani Ki Jai. So how is it that someone like me, who was born and raised in America on the very active and grew up on the sinful activities that I swore to renounce when I took initiation from Prabhupada, I'm standing before you giving a seminar on Prabhupada's position? This has got to be Prabhupada Kripa. This is not anything of my doing. Prabhupada intercepted me in my karmic trajectory and put me at Krishna's lotus feet, right? Prabhupada's mercy, Prabhu, isn't it amazing? The Vaishnava turns the whole compliment around into a glorification of his gurus. Okay, so that's how we can handle the compliment. In Mayapur, I heard a devotee give a class, and he said, yes, praise is like a hot potato. You gotta pass it up. you can't hang on to that praise. You'll get burned, right? And you can't deny the praise, right? Because you are agreeing to be the carrier of the mercy. So there's something. So you say, thank you, Prabhu, it's Prabhupada's mercy, and you just pass it up. Okay, let's do one more. Is that okay? Okay. Let's do another bullet point, a symptom of a true founder acharya. Okay, just keep, no, as you like.
Holds a unique post.
Unique post, one of a kind. We don't replace the founder acharya. And then the comeback for that is, oh, Sureshwara, you mean there's never going to be another one like Prabhupada? There's never going to be another Mahabhagavat, a Nityasiddha, Shaktivesh avatar? Gee whiz. So what do I say? No, we could use some people like that. Bring them on. Bring on the Nitya Bhukta Purushas. Let them take birth in the Hare Krishna movement. What will they do? Will they try to take Prabhupada's place? No. They'll be very happy to cooperate with someone like Prabhupada, who is unimaginably close and confidential servant of Sri Sri Kishore Kishori, of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. they'll just do amazing things. Already in our brief history in ISKCON, 50 plus years, we see people who are very surrendered to Prabhupada's life, teachings, mood, and mission. They do amazing things. Yeah. So similarly, as much as we surrender our desire and will to Prabhupada's mission, we can also be empowered. Maybe not on that scale, but we can also do good stuff. Unique post, one of a kind, and
is the Acharya or leader of all Vaishnavas even when physically present?
Usually when some great personality is on earth, he's misunderstood or she's misunderstood, like Joan of Arc. You know Joan of Arc, the story? In fact, once there's a recording in Seattle, October 68, a lady saying, Srila Prabhupada? Yeah, they were calling him Prabhupada by then. Is Joan of Arc in the Srimad Bhagavatam? This is like a classic early ISKCON comment, right? Is Joan of Arc in the Srimad Bhagavatam? And you hear Prabhupada say, Joan of Arc? You want to see Joan of Arc in the Srimad Bhagavatam? Why don't you understand that Joan of Arc's whole life is Srimad Bhagavatam? He was very generously including Joan of Arc as a saintly person, a Bhagavat, a great devotee of God. Yes, why? Okay, you got the exact, I was paraphrasing. Why do you limit Bhagavatam? The Bhagavats are all over the world in so many different traditions. Similarly in Tehran, Iran, Atreya Rishi reported to Prabhupada that, it's very difficult to have Harinam in a place like Tehran because it's so militantly Muslim, it's so sectarian. So Prabhupada said a similar thing. He said, why do you limit Sankirtan? Why, if they are attached to the name of Allah, get them to chant the name of Allah. Nam Namakari Bahudan Yaja Sarva Shaktis. That's the second Shikshastik. Krishna's got hundreds and millions of names, Mahaprabhu says. So yeah, sometimes we think in a kind of limitedly, and then Prabhupada gets us out of the box. So usually a great soul is misunderstood. Like Joan of Arc, she was burnt at the stake. They thought she was a religious fanatic, and then she was betrayed by her own countrymen and given over to the British due to some political intrigue, and she was burned at the stake. And then later on, she was canonized as a saint. So first they crucify you, and then they canonize you. That's typical Kali Yuga. This is what happens. Yeah. No good deed goes unpunished in Kali Yuga. Remember that. So in Prabhupada's case, because Prabhupada was determined that what happened to his own Guru Maharaj's mission not happen to ISKCON, the fragmentation and the court cases and the whole, we have a little taste of that ourselves, but nothing like what happened to the Gaudiya Math. Prabhupada, he felt duty-bound to say and publish words that were very, very heavy about what happened to the Gaudiya mission. So we wouldn't repeat those horrible mistakes. And those words sometimes offended his godbrothers. So when Prabhupada was on his disappearance bed in 1977, right near the end, he said to Bhakti True Maharaj, call all my godbrothers, because now he's in the mood of Uttam Adhikari. He's no longer in the mood of Madhya, where he's calling a spade is making distinctions. He's feeling himself not incapable, and everybody else is serving Krishna except me, that kind of mood. So now he wants Bhakti True Maharaj to call all these godbrothers so we can apologize to them. So a lot of them came. So one Ashram Maharaj was there, and Prabhupada said, please forgive me, I'm Mahapatita. I'm greatly fallen for saying and publishing what I did. Ashram Maharaj and all the others, they're very touched by Prabhupada's humility. And they say, oh, no, no, Maharaj, you're not Mahapatita, you're not greatly fallen. You're Mahapatita Pavana. You saved so many fallen people. No, no, Prabhupada said, I became very proud. So many disciples, so much Lakshmi, so many books, so many temples. No, no, Maharaj. When you, by dint of your absolute surrender to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, to Guru Maharaj, all that followed you, like maidservant. Lakshmi followed you, good fortune followed you. You're our leader. You can chastise us. It's okay. So at least at the end, there was a kind of reconciliation with many of the God brothers. So, and then finally,
Awards power of attorney to his followers who strictly adhere to his teachings.
yes, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said you can know how great a Vaishnava is by how many others he turns to the bhakti path. So Srila Prabhupada, he was so absolutely surrendered to Krishna. People say, how were you able to do what you did? Well, because Prabhupada was so inspiring. He was working harder than all of us put together, so whatever Prabhupada wanted, we tried to do. So he turned atheists into theists, faithless people into faithful, hippies into happies, if you will. So, and he turned, and look what we have now. We have so many amazing devotees who are giving shelter to so many people all over the world. So power of attorney, power of representation. If I give you power of attorney, you can represent me at the bank or in the court, right? So Prabhupada did that. He empowered so many people by saying things like, by quoting that verse from Mahaprabhu, Yare dako tare kaha Krishna upadesh, amara gyai guru hanya tare desh. He wanted us to all grow up and be gurus in our own right, while always remaining a fool in front of our gurus. Okay, so lesson outcomes. By the end of the lesson, students will be able to identify organizational, philosophical, cultural, and literary seeds of the Founder Acharya principle as they appeared over time, about 400 years, 400 and plus years. In the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, we should be able to recount how the Founder Acharya phrase finally appeared in the 1930s. We should be able to identify the foundational role of the Founder Acharya in the Vaishnava Sampradayas, Vishnu Swami, Nimbarka, especially Madhva Ramanuja. And we should be able to identify symptoms of a Founder Acharya noted in the Harinama Chintamani. So before I sit down and take questions, this afternoon at 2:30 we'll reconvene and we're going to tie up the whole Sambandha section. This is the final section of Sambandha. After this afternoon's lesson, we should really understand Prabhupada's position thoroughly by doing this lesson, which has the same title as the entire series. When I'm traveling through a place and there's only time to do one lesson, it's like a free sample. I say, Prabhu's, okay, you want me to do something? Then how about if we do one seminar? And if you like it, you can invite me back. So this is the one I do. It's the one that represents, it's the, what do they call, the signature lesson of the whole series. Transition. Having looked at the origin, characteristics, and historical development of the Founder Acharya principle, we are now ready to examine how our Srila Prabhupada emerged as the Founder Acharya of a fresh branch of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya called ISKCON. Okay, maybe we can put the lights on now. I'm going to flip the switch. Okay, you've been a very attentive audience, very patiently holding your fire. Now, when I teach these lessons, I purposely leave things out so that you can wonder about why I left it out. Did anybody notice anything that you might... Prabhu, you have a...
I have a question when you started with like Madhvacharya is accepted as a disciple of Vasudeva than his own Diksha Guru.
You're going to have to speak slower, and you're going to have to imitate an American. I mean, we imitate the Indians imitate us. It's really a riot, isn't it? Okay. Talk like John Wayne, or who's the latest big guy? Who's a big... I don't know. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Just
when you
slowly.
started, like, you told Vyasdeva is Madhvacharya's guru, his Siksha Guru, but he's come as Madhvacharya's guru, then his own Diksha Guru. I was confused there.
Who's the Diksha Guru of Madhva?
Not who is the Diksha Guru of Madhva, but why he is accepted as, like the Siksha Guru is given more importance. Like about the yesterday session, it is clear that Guru is the one, but in ISKCON we see that Diksha Guru is given the primary importance than the Siksha Guru. So I was confused.
Okay, yeah, that's
about
why
the history and the ISKCON current.
Okay, that's one of the reasons I'm teaching this lesson, because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, when he made that list we see in our books, the disciplic succession, he called the list a Bhagavat or Shiksha Parampara. These are people, preceptors who are teaching. It's all about the teachings. It's not a line of initiators and initiated. Now, sometimes there's an overlap, like in ISKCON, you know, my Diksha Guru happens to be Srila Prabhupada. He's also the founder Acharya of the line. So and also in his case, he was the Diksha disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, who was the founder Acharya of the Gaudiya mission. Now, Bhaktisiddhanta could see, you're going to see in lesson 4, what was going to happen to that mission. He could see past and present and future, and he knew that there was going to be a dissolution, a fragmentation of that cooperative mission. And so he didn't personally introduce himself as founder Acharya. Plus he knew that it would have been perceived as presumptuous on his part to be on the same level as Ramanuja, Madhva, Nimbarka, etc. So you're going to see in lesson 7 how, I think I already mentioned it, how it takes a sampradaya to raise a sadhaka. So just because we're focusing on Prabhupada as our foundational spiritual master, as our founder Acharya, doesn't mean we're minimizing any of our other gurus, Shiksha or Diksha. But he is that pivotal person around whom we all revolve. Like, what's that book by Giriraj Swami, Many Moons? We're all supposed to become, and as the generations go on, you know, many moons around our founder Acharya. So, so your question was about why the focus now still on Diksha. Well, one reason is because Diksha is very important. So we're trying to get a balance, we're trying to find a balance here. Because that started after Prabhupada left. It started because because Prabhupada said, do as I do. So in our immaturity and maybe a little personal ambition was mixed in there, people started accepting worship on the level of the founder Acharya, and it was wrong. So now we're just putting everything back into balance. And then there was a reaction to that. In lesson 9, you're going to see the reaction to what I call Dikshism, the exclusive focus on the Diksha Guru, which is wrong. There was a reaction to that. The reaction to Dikshism was Ritvikism, saying that Prabhupada's the only Guru, right? That's also wrong. 108 wrongs don't make a right. So now we're stopping the pendulum at Prabhupada's lotus feet as the founder Acharya, in whom we can all flourish as Diksha and Shiksha disciples and gurus. So the short answer is that we're still recovering from that imitation of Prabhupada's position, but that's not to minimize the value of these people. Those people are our access. Even me, I'm a Diksha disciple of Prabhupada, right? It's not just about me and Prabhupada. I'm going to take good Shiksha from anybody from any generation whom I feel is closer to Prabhupada than me. And I meet him all the time. People of, grand disciples of Prabhupada, great grand disciples. There's some amazing people in the Hare Krishna movement. So what's my core identity? It's not that I'm Prabhupada's initiated disciple. It's that I'm his instructed follower. He lives forever by his divine instructions, and the follower lives with him. We all have the same core identity, just like the Ramanujis know that they're all connected to Ramanuja 1,000 years later. So our unity in ISKCON is that we're all instructed followers of Srila Prabhupada. That's our core identity. That's how we're all connected. And the more we get that, the more we'll have unity and cooperation in ISKCON. That's lesson 8. Yeah, we have to get that. That's really our core identity. And with that identity, as I told the story last night, the Maharaj said to the lady, well, what if you took initiation from someone who wouldn't block your relationship with Prabhupada, but who would enrich, enhance, and deepen it? What about that? Oh, I never heard that before. My God. No wonder why the lady was going crazy. She thought she had to somehow change her core identity as a Prabhupada Nuga. No. But the Diksha and Shiksha Gurus enhanced that identity. Yeah. That was kind of roundabout. Did I hit the mark eventually, or do you have more questions about that? Or why today still there's... But they're important. Like my relationship in a very human, manifest way, the one who my brand, my Prabhupada, is very close to Satsarup Maharaj. He's my prominent Shiksha Guru in ISKCON. I just visited him. I just went up there in upstate New York, and they had every year in the summer around the 4th of July, and then in the winter around his birthday in December, like Christmas time, Christmas season. They have gatherings of friends and disciples of Satsarup Maharaj. So a lot of his disciples were there, but a lot of us Prabhupada initiates were there too, because we really appreciate him. And we appreciate how much of Prabhupada he's given us, through all the books he's written. His life's example. And he's had hard times, right? He's had his ups and downs, but he's a Prabhupada man. So he is in a very human, manifest way. He's one of the most important people in my life, because he's giving me Prabhupada. And I always tell him that when I visit him, how much he's given Prabhupada to me, and therefore I feel closer to Prabhupada through his Prabhupada. That's the last lesson. Your Srila Prabhupada in the series. That's next Sunday. Maharaj has something to say. Why don't we pass the mic on to Maharaj, who's taken a lot more responsibility for people than I have, so we need to hear from...
I guess it's just a continuation of that same point. How do we, that's a question to you, how do we empower people to take up the responsibility of doing Shiksha service for the mission?
Same as last night, but you were telling me that was a discussion of how we formalize it or empower it.
Well, the points haven't been really discussed in a practical term. I mean, the idea is there, that we need that, and to formalize it would give it more of a commitment between those who are in that relationship. Mm-hmm. But because now people may take Shiksha and then drop it and go for someone else, right. and then they... So how do we actually... the question is more like, how do we inspire persons who have those qualifications to take on that responsibility?
Very, very good. Very good. It really should be coming from the top. Just like when I was approached in 2014 by my godbrother, Kalakanta Prabhu, I wanted a new base in the West, and at that point, it was in 2012. And I said, Kalakanta Prabhu, I'm looking at 3 places. I'm looking at ISKCON Silicon Valley. I'm looking at New Vrindavan, my old alma mater when I was initiated. And I'm looking at Krishna House in Gainesville, Florida. So we went back and forth, and it ended up I moved to Krishna House for the summer. That became my base for a few years. So he said, yeah, Sureshwara, come on down, help me out here. You know, this is not one man's job. All these students, you know, there's like 40,000 students at the University of Florida, and they have some of them living at Krishna House. And I said, okay, yeah, it sounds exciting. And then he said, but, you know, I want to tell you something, Sureshwara. I'm initiating now. What do you think of that? Oh, it's great, Maharaj. Go for it. Yeah, do it. You're qualified. And then he said, what about you? Because he said what he said to the GBC face to face. What kind of a guru-disciple culture do we want in ISKCON? Do we want a handful of people initiating thousands of disciples whose names they don't even know? Or do we want thousands of gurus initiating enough people that they can personally relate to? What kind of a culture do we want here? And so he's approaching me saying, you know, you could do it, Sureshwara. We need more people. You know, and he told me his story. He said, you know, when you're preaching to these students and you're bringing them closer to Prabhupada and Krishna, and then they want to take the next step. They want to go from sadhu sangha to bhajana kriya, but then you tell them, oh, gee, I'm sorry, I don't do that. We have to consult so-and-so Maharaj, you know, who's thousands of miles away, maybe.
Who they don't even know.
Whom they don't even know. What did Prabhupada say in that CC purport? Generally, the one who gives the most shiksha, he becomes their diksha guru. So when you're in front of those students, and they're looking at you, and they've got so much faith in Krishna consciousness because of your preaching. You've been empowered to do that preaching. And then you say, sorry, it's a kind of violence, a kind of spiritual violence to that soul who really, they have faith in Prabhupada and Krishna because of you. So what about you, Sureshwara? Well, you know, I'll tell you what, Kalakanta Prabhu, I don't agree with the system. Do you know the system? Do you know the system to become an approved ISKCON Diksha Guru? Well, it's sort of changing, I hope. But the system is this. You've got to go around and lobby. You've got to get 10 endorsements from senior devotees who will vouch for you that you're okay. Prabhu, will you vouch for me that, I mean, it's backwards.
Yeah.
You've got to approach people, it's like you've got to get a petition to get 10 people to sign off that you're okay. It should be the other way around. It should be that the powers that be, you know, the GBC mainly, should be approaching people to do that job. Not that you have to go lobbying to be a guru. Anybody who's lobbying to be a guru and likes that, that's a red flag, right? They shouldn't be lobbying. They should just be the humblest. But if it comes down, if it descends, as you'll see in the next lesson, how it descended on Prabhupada to become a founder acharya. That was the furthest thing from Prabhupada's mind. When he got off that boat, or when he left Calcutta on the Jaladuta, he didn't want to be the founder acharya of anything. He was just trying to revive the Gaudiya mission. So I said, I don't agree with the system. And so Kalakanta said, yeah, I don't agree with it either. It was humiliating to approach 10 senior devotees and ask them to, you know, to tell the GBC you're good, right? And then if for 6 months, and then you have to get a GBC sponsor to take those endorsements, bring them to the GBC, present them, and then for 6 months, if the GBC has no objection,
they elect a committee to supervise what you've given, and if one person doesn't like it, then you're out.
You're out. If one person shoots you down and said, hey, you know, back in 1975, you know what this guy did?
Right. Yeah, he stole some maha.
He became the prasadam thief. Wait a minute, I'm still finishing the answer. So I was really firm on this because that was my position, right? When anybody would ever say that to me, I don't agree with the system. It's upside down and backwards. And so Kalakanta said, yeah, I don't agree with it either. But then he said, you know, when you're face to face with these people and you deny them, therefore I just went through this humiliating process just so that I could be approved, stamped. He's bona fide spiritual master. So I had to admit he had a point, you know, that if I'm going to be preaching to young people or anybody, and then somehow I inspire them to take the next step, then I got to take responsibility. I got to become a dad, a spiritual dad. So on the 4th of July, 2014, before Prabhupada's Murti at the Krishna House in Gainesville, Florida, in the presence of my GBC sponsor, Shesha Prabhu, I took the oath of office. I pledged allegiance, you know, to the GBC and to promise that I'd nicely represent ISKCON. Now, I also feel that, this is just me personally, that I'm never going to take on a disciple unless I'm there for the disciple, personally. Because I know that's what Prabhupada wants. He wants a very local, sustainable guru-disciple culture. So,
Forget that.
I took the oath of office, but I haven't taken on any disciples yet because I travel and I preach. But since now, that excuse is going away now, because in 2017, in September, I found a new base. After being homeless for many years, right? And just traveling around the world and getting worn out and teaching. So I no longer have that excuse. So we'll see what Krishna hasn't sent anybody yet, but I may have to surrender and become a dad. Maharaj.
Yeah, one very, I guess the word is sad, very unfortunate thing is that when persons like Kalakanta, using him as an example, or preaching, or other people are preaching, and they bring people forward and they develop a relationship, and that person cannot give that shelter, those people go away. It's happened a lot in our movement. Many senior devotees who haven't had that position, because they had attracted that person didn't want anybody else. And then they just kind of drifted back into, you know, back
you
to
see, this is a great example of the violence done to that soul by denying that flow. The flow of mercies coming down from Krishna through certain people. Those people have to be approached by people in authority who can encourage them. Please, Prabhu, please give mercy to people. Take on disciples. Mataji, thank you. That was a great follow-up.
I have two questions, but I don't know if it is relevant to
It's 12:30, but go ahead.
to your presentation. The first question has popped up while this discussion was happening. Not because I'm a woman, but there's also this whole controversy of Mataji Diksha Guru. And it's the same things that some senior Prabhupada disciple, women disciple, are big inspiration for many young men and women, but there is this huge controversy which is splitting the whole movement, like, you know.
Right.
I don't know if it's relevant, but if it's not, personally, I would like to hear your thoughts on this topic.
Well, we're going to get there
Okay.
in lesson 9.
Because for me, when I hear our Ganga Mata Goswamini or Hemalata, Janava Mata, it's there in our Gaudiya Sampradaya examples. So for me, it's always little...
Okay, so let me just say, I'll give you a short answer now, and then later we'll, lesson 9, which will be Sunday the 5th morning. The question never even came up in Prabhupada's time in India, because it's such a kind of patriarchal culture, but still, there were examples, as you just said. Jai Shri Shri Kishore Kishori Shri Shri Gunita Jagannath Prabhu Subhadra Maharani. Janavama was the leader of the Vaishnavas. Lord Nityananda's wife, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. So, but because of the culture in India, it didn't, even though we do have examples, it didn't even come up in Prabhupada's time, the question about Vaishnavis initiating in India. It came up in America, of course, with the feminist movement in the 70s or just, egalitarian America. Forget feminism. Prabhupada was asked personally the question in Toronto, where I'm headed next, by a Gaudiya Vaishnava scholar, what's his name? Joseph O'Connell, who was a good friend of the movement, just like Tom Hopkins at Franklin and Marshall. And he was asked also in Chicago, by Judith Wax. Do you know Judith Wax, the Playboy magazine journalist?
Mm-hmm.
The mother of Pundarik. There's different Pundariks, but it is Pundarik. It was the mother of Pundarik Prabhu. So in Toronto, in June '76, when Prabhupada was there, he was asked, can a woman be a guru? So Prabhupada quoted Ramananda Roy, who was empowered by Mahaprabhu to say, or was it Mahaprabhu? You tell me, Maharaj. Kiba Vipra, Kiba Nyasi, was that Mahaprabhu or Ramananda Roy? Talks with Ramananda Roy and Mahaprabhu. One or the other. Kiba Vipra, Kiba Nyasi, Shudra Kene Noi, Ye Krishna Tattva Veta, Say Guru Hoy. Kiba Vipra, whether you're learned, Kiba Nyasi, or whether you're very renounced, or Shudra Kene Noi, or whether you're in Shudra Varna. As Ramananda Roy was a kayasta, was a kind of a shudra, a clerk, or he was a governor actually. There's a class of politicians that are actually in shudra varna. Prabhupada talks about this in one purport. Shudra kene noi, ye Krishna tattva veta. If you know the art and science of serving Krishna, say Guru Hoy. So Prabhupada's answer to O'Connell was, why not, if the person's qualified? And then he said, but not so many. In other words, classically, historically, not as many ladies have been in that position. But in principle, there's nothing wrong, right? Now, when Judith Wax, she asked Prabhupada the same question, maybe 75. Yeah, it was 75. Because that was when Prabhupada came to Chicago, and there was a lot of controversy about, the position of women in traditional Gaudiya culture, and all the feminist reporters were firing on him, and Prabhupada was having fun with him. He was, I can't have a baby. Why can't I have a baby? Because my body's different. Prabhupada was trying to get them to see that it's absurd to try to find equality and freedom on the bodily platform. We're all different. And we have different roles because of our bodies and our psychologies. In Chicago and Philly, boy, he had fun with these feminist reporters. It was fireworks. So anyway, but Judith Wax, she was a journalist too, but she was favorable because her son was a devotee and she appreciated Prabhupada. But she also was curious about the role of women, and she said, can a woman be a temple president? Can a woman be a GBC? Can a woman be a guru? Same thing. Why not if she's qualified? I don't know if he quoted Kiva Vipra in that case. Now, here's the challenge in ISKCON, right? ISKCON is a global movement, cutting across, as I said before, all kinds of traditions and politics and ways of being. So why was Prabhupada so successful in spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world? We're going to take a look at this in lesson 8. To love is to cooperate. Because Prabhupada knew how to present Krishna consciousness appropriately according to the time. Prabhupada said, time, country, candidate. The way you spread Krishna consciousness in America is way different than you spread it in India because of the culture. Different cultures. So even though Prabhupada is on the soul level, the spirit level, and he just penetrates through those karmas, that doesn't mean he preaches the same way in those countries. He knows how to bring people to Krishna appropriately according to, he said, time, country, candidate. We're going to take a look especially at a CC verse, purport, where Prabhupada talks about how to do this, and then in a Bhagavatam purport. This is in, yeah, it's in lesson 8. I'm just keep furrowing my brow because I'm just trying to remember where it fit in. Yeah, it's in, yeah, to love is to cooperate, because you have to know how to find unity in diversity, and we find our unity in the principles, but we diversify the applications of those principles according to time, country, candidate. Yeah. So we've been constipated in ISKCON, even though in principle there was a resolution in 2005, I believe, that in principle a Vaishnavi, a qualified Vaishnavi could initiate. We've been constipated on the application of this for 13 years because, in my view, correct me if I'm wrong, Maharaj, but it's like we're trying to do a one-size-fits-all thing here, you know, a resolution, but it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. You can, if it works in principle, but you've got to be sensitive to the time, country, candidate. So if it doesn't work in India still, in our India yatra, okay, it doesn't work. We can't force them to do that if it doesn't work there, but we can certainly do it in a place where there's more cultural acceptance. And you'll find, and I'm going to do this in lesson 9, Prabhupada wants this. He wants this. In 1969, he wanted it. You'll see, powerfully. So I won't say anything more, but it'll come up in context very powerfully, very appropriately, convincingly of what Prabhupada wants. Now Maharaj is going to add some more. And by the way, we're cutting into our break, so we'll go as long as... We'll give Maharaj the last word here.
I just wanted to mention to Himangi that the principle is there, but the details on how to make it happen, or what is it, define what are the roles of a woman guru according to cultural situations and qualifications. That's the struggle right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the struggle.
Well, that's true, that's the struggle, but first there has to be a will to do it Prabhupada's way. And if there's no will, there's no way. Where there's a will, there is a way. So the GBC has promised now at the last GBC plenary in Mayapur that they're going to do that. They're going to come to some conclusion about how to do it. So I'm hoping that they're true to their word.
I don't want to prolong the conversation, but even in India culturally, there are a lot of other so-called spiritual paths, and there are many women gurus, and they have big followers. So for ISKCON leaders to say that even in India they won't accept women as guru, it's not really strong in this age and time. I don't want to prolong the conversation, but I was just thinking we have to, people notice these things, you know, people are not blind.
Yeah, and when we say that, time, country, candidate, we're not compromising.
Yeah.
We're actually being practical to keep the flow of mercy going. Otherwise it's a block. Yeah, and it's true, what Maharaj said and what you said. We get our faith in certain devotees, and it's so ironic because Mahaprabhu preached against Smarta Brahmanism, which is the bodily concept of life, and Prabhupada did too, and yet based on a bodily consideration, we're blocking the flow of mercy. Yeah, in the name of the role. We'll talk about role. Okay, let's stop here.
Thank you.
To be continued. Please come at 2:30 and we'll do the last lesson of Sambandha where we tie up all the points of Prabhupada's position, and we should really understand deeply Prabhupada's position by the end of this next lesson. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.